Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Vesuvius regular open meeting, of Vesuvius Town Council on August the 10th, 2021, 2 p.m. in council chambers. I need a resolution to exclude the public first, please, that in accordance with ministerial order M192, the Town of Vesuvius regular open council meeting continues to be closed to the public due to the inability to meet physical distancing recommendations made under the Public Health Act in council chambers located at 8707 Main Street. And that to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability, the Town of Vesuvius regular open council meetings will continue to be recorded, streamed, and published on the town's website, and that the regular open meetings be streamed on Eastlink Community Channel. Motion, please. Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. And are there any late items, Mrs. Hilson? No, they've all been included. Thank you. So we need a motion, please, that the regular open agenda of August 10th be approved as printed. Councillor King, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. And we have the regular open minutes of July the 27th. We need a motion, please, that the regular open minutes be adopted. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. Thank you. Public hearings, petitions, no, we're going to go down to a grant application for the active transportation planning. That's next. So that would be Mr. Brownstein.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Could you let him sit there, please?
No, I can.
Mrs. Oh, he's sitting there. All right.
Can you?
I
Can
just
everybody
want
hear
to make
me?
sure that we can hear you and we can see you.
Well, no,
Am I
you
correct?
can't see anybody on that anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Brownstein. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. This is a request for council resolution to apply for the BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant for a active transportation network plan. This grant has already been submitted as the closing date was the end of July. However, I need a council resolution supporting the submission as well as council's endorsement to use $25,025 from our operating contingency budget to fund our 50% portion of this grant. So this will allow us to develop a active transportation network plan for the community for things like bicycles, other modes of transportation, including scooters, etc. We'll look to actually provide a plan and goalposts in order to move it forward. Right now, we have policy stating that we will look at this. This plan will be a defined avenue in which we will progress towards it.
And can I ask if you get this application, when will it be done?
I'm anticipating the end of the year that the plan will be completed and ready for council's review.
Probably by the end of the year.
Yep.
And does it coordinate with the Trails Network?
That will be one of the aspects of this is we'll link into key stakeholders such as OIB, the Kettle Valley Trail Society, and any other stakeholders that may be required to be engaged in order to make sure that this is cohesive through the valley. The RDOS will probably be another one we'll reach out to make sure that, you know, everything marries with what's going on around us and not just try to stand this plan alone.
Okay, Councillor Bennett, did you have a question or a comment?
Your Worship, could I just clarify
Absolutely.
completion, because if I look at the letter that WSP submitted.
Yeah.
Letter of transmittal and include a schedule, they suggested conclusion in April.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, my apologies.
Start in September though.
Yeah, there we go.
I didn't catch that. Go ahead.
I'll push them hard.
Oh, you're, go right ahead. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that we go with option 1. Seconded. Are there any other questions or concerns about this? Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, Thank you, Mr. Brownstein.
Thank you, Your
Get
Worship.
that organized PDQ.
Done.
Let me
Has it
just,
already been sent?
Yeah.
Okay, next, are we okay, Mrs. Hilton? Do we don't have, we can have that all as one motion? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we need, the Planning and Development Services Director now, please.
thank you, Mayor McCord, but let me just say how fantastic it is to mark something off the list of the OCP projects before the OCP is finally adopted. That's fantastic. So I'm here before you today, Mayor and Council, to discuss development variance permit 21-03, which, if approved, would apply to phases 2 and phase 3, phase 2 and phase 3 of the Meadowlark Plan area, being the property located at 10129 74th and 10105 74th. And so the proposal is to vary a section of the Town of Suze Subdivision Development Servicing Bylaw number 1100, 1998, that is section 7.4, as it pertains to the low volume R4 urban roads. And that is to vary the dedicated portion of the road from 16 meters to 15 meters. The most important part of this being that the actual travel portion of the road, the widths of the sidewalks, etc., will not change. Therefore, as you look at it, you would think that it is exactly as it should be in our bylaw. The only thing that changes is the dedicated portion of the road. So these properties are within the Town of Suze Southeast Meadowlark Plan area. Phase 1 was developed by the town and provided a site for the Town of Suze Fire Hall and the first 25 residential lots in the plan area, and also a small neighborhood park. At the time of subdivision of phase 1, the town determined that the underground utilities could be accommodated within a right of way reduced from 16 meters to 15 meters in width, as long as the travel route portions remain unchanged. And so what's happened now is the engineers for phases 2 and 3 have designed the roads based on that road schematic. So the schematic on page 147 of the Town of Suze Subdivision Development Servicing Bylaw, which is attachment number 4 to this report, illustrates the dedicated right of way for an urban local road is 16 meters, and all underground utilities must be accommodated within that right of way. So that design includes space for sidewalk, lighting, etc. And the travel portion, that is each lane, is 4 meters in width. So the drawing that's on page 2 of my report, Council, is taken from the engineered drawings provided by the developer of phase 2 of the Meadowlark Plan area, and would then be in turn used as reference for phase 3, and they've now completed their engineered drawings as well. So you'll note this drawing is based on the existing phase 1 Raven Court roadway with a dedicated right of way 15 meters within which all underground utilities must be accommodated, in addition to sidewalk, etc. So the rationale again for support here is staff supports the variances. It allows for phase 2 and 3 to be constructed to the same standard as phase 1, which the town completed, and that the travel portion will remain as per the schematic on at 8 meters in width. And there's a cul-de-sac for phase 2. We'll have a sidewalk extending from Meadowlark Drive to the neighborhood park, and also the road extending from Run Drive to Meadowlark Drive will also have sidewalks. So it's going to be quite a nice little development over there. Implications are as follows. For the community, in accordance with council policy, council shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments. Organizationally, additional tasks would be to ensure the approved engineered drawings comply with the standards that we've outlined and or the requested variance. There are no impacts to the budget associated with this application process. Now, as per the Town of Suze Land Use Procedures Bylaw, a sign was erected on the corner of the 2 subject properties, indicating that council would be considering issuance of development variance permit at an upcoming meeting. Now, if council accepts moving forward with consideration of this variance and authorizes issuance of the notices, staff will proceed with mailing and hand delivery of the notices within 60-meter radius of the subject properties. And the proposed variance is not at odds, of course, with the town's sustainability plan. Now, the options before council today are option 1 in 2 parts. 1A, council resolved to consider this variance at their next meeting of council, and 2, or B, that is, sorry, that council authorized staff to proceed with the notification process which advises the council's intention to consider issuance at the August 24, 2021 regular council meeting. Or option 2, council denies moving forward, or option 3, council requests additional information before proceeding forward, and staff are recommending option 1. Thank you, Mayor Cora.
Thank you very much. Do you have time between now and the next, and the 24th to do the notification process?
They're ready and stuffed and ready to put in the mailbox.
Okay, so what happens if people are on holiday? Is there any other options that they can get their, this notification? Does it?
Been a sign posted.
There's been a
that
sign posted
folks
for
should have
quite
noticed
some
and been
time.
talking about.
Okay,
In addition to mailing, notices are hand delivered to the subject property within 60 meters.
okay.
So we hope that word gets around, but really it doesn't change the complexion of the neighborhood. It just continues what
Right.
exists there now.
Thank you, CEO Chabot, and I suspect that nobody's gonna have any. If anybody has any comments that won't be about this specifically.
Yeah, so, go ahead, Councilor Rhodes. Oh,
Oh, thank you, Mayor.
Councilor
I guess
King,
it just
sorry.
relates that by moving it to the next meeting to pass it, we're kind of giving this development to go ahead already by putting signs up.
I know, it just says the signs for development variance permit, Councilor King, just say that council is going to be considering a variance. It doesn't say that you're approving
Okay.
it.
And there aren't any downsides to this. In
No, I
other
like
words,
it. I like it. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
No, I appreciate that. No, none that we can certainly see.
okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Member Coyle. We had a fairly comprehensive review of the new OCP this morning, and there was some conversation about other changes in bylaws and that kind of thing relating to development. Are we going to have any regrets if we move forward with this?
No.
Not at all.
That's a good question, Councilor Rhodes. No, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, as I say, the most important thing is that all the services still fit within that narrowed, dedicated road right of way. We're not narrowing the travel portion or eliminating a sidewalk or opportunities for lighting or curb and gutter, et cetera. It's just the part that you don't actually see. That's the underground.
How did this get, like, if this was already done for the last project, how did it not just
So
get?
that's a
continued?
very good question, Mayor McCordoff. It was not done.
We didn't do it for the last one.
No,
Okay.
council's not necessarily required to comply with their bylaw, but as the approving officer for the municipality, it's imperative that I comply, in my opinion, with any plans that I sign off on. And I will have to sign off on the plans for this subdivision, and so I'm here before you today.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Council, go ahead, Councilor Rhodes.
We'll move the staff recommended option number 1A.
We consider the variance at the next meeting. Are you seconding that,
Yes.
Councilor King? Any concerns? All in favor? Thank you. Somebody who would like to make a motion with option
1B.
1B, removing option 1B. Councilor Bennett, seconding that. Any concerns? All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, you're finished with that one. There we go. Is. are you-
Yeah, I can do this next one, your worship.
Okay, that would be the. I'm getting here, it's a bit confusing. This is the installation of audible signals on Highway 3 and Spartan Drive.
Spartan Drive and Cottonwood, your worship.
Oh, yes,
There's
so
actually two
there's two of them,
locations.
sorry,
Yeah.
you're quite right.
Your worship, this report comes via the Director of Community Services on behalf of the town's Accessibility and Age-Friendly Committee, who have been investigating the installation of audible signals at two intersections of Highway 3 at Spartan Drive and at Cottonwood Drive. And that's to enhance the safety for persons with a visual impairment or disability to safely transit amongst the community. After discussion at the committee, the staff has contacted the Ministry of Transportation, who would split the cost of the installation of audible crossing signals with the town, contingent upon the town providing a letter of agreement. and the town sending a notice to nearby properties that it was considering this installation and that it may create some noise, and see if there was any concerns. I don't believe that we received any reply to the notice that was sent on July the 14th to neighboring properties of these locations. The audible signal installation was first identified in the town in 2013 by Spark BC, who said that none of the crosswalks within the town of Osoyoos that were examined provided accessible pedestrian signals to meet the Canadian National Institute for the Blind's guidelines. An accessible pedestrian signal provides auditory, visual, and tactile information so that a person with vision and or hearing loss will know when it is legal to cross at a set of traffic cones. I guess it's the tactile is what tells a person who is or who has hearing loss and with cane, I guess. So in the past, there used to be just the birds chirping, and then for a while there was an annunciator about which particular road you could cross. If you're visually impaired, you might not know which road you're at. So they've launched a new approved installation called the Canadian Melody, which plays, which apparently is a lot less, more acceptable, I guess, to folks in the noise that it creates. So the ministry has attached a letter of agreement, and it's included with the report. Staff is asking that council approve the entering into this agreement with the ministry. It would see the town pay $14,000 for both of the intersections, and that amount is included in the budget. The committee has been allocated funds for accessibility improvements in the community, and they identify this as a preferred expenditure to better serve those in the community with the need. So the options are for council to approve the installation of audible signals at Highway 3 and Spartan Drive, as well as Highway 3 and Cottonwood Drive, by authorizing the town signatories to sign the letter of agreement with the Ministry of Transportation, or for council not to approve the installation. The recommendation is for option 1. This is identified as a top priority for the Accessibility and Age Friendly Committee. The letter of agreement with the ministry suggests that the work should be complete by March the 15th.
Go ahead, Councillor
Yeah,
Kane.
thank you, Madam One. As I said on the committee, we've discussed this for over a year, and I'd definitely move option 1.
Thank you. Go ahead,
So,
seconding it.
I do.
I would, did you have a question? Yeah, go ahead, because I do too. You go first.
Just curious about the one on Spartan. Is it a four-way situation?
Yeah, it is all four, but there is one area that does cause me some concern that I've not received a great answer, and that's the pass by lane in front of the drugstore
Yeah.
there, because I don't think the intention is to put an audible signal across that piece, so there would be tactile warnings. But really that one leg isn't really covered off. I hope that with the installation and working with the ministry, they can suggest some ways to mitigate it. I looked at it, I was pleased that at least the sight lines were pretty good. Drivers should be able to observe if someone was making their way. But yeah, I didn't get a great answer to how that was going to get resolved.
So.
Do you think it'll have any effect on the decision we're making today? I mean,
No, they've looked at these intersections and they've recommended it, and they've prepared the agreement for us for the installation.
I thought we had a place somewhere in town where there was an audible signal at one time.
Right now, there is one at the Spartan Drive on the one side of the church.
Yeah,
To make some type of noise. Yeah, it is on
Yes,
one side
and-
still.
Oh, okay.
so I don't understand how this is going to affect, I can see if people cannot see, they can hear when the chirping goes on. What about people who have a hearing loss? They're not gonna hear it, they're just gonna have to look at the visual signals, right? Yeah.
Kind of works.
Well,
in
there'll be
reverse.
tactile too. There'll be bumps on the pavement that will feel different under foot.
Oh, I
Will
see.
tell you you're approaching something.
Okay,
A lot of that stuff's more useful for a cane user.
sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm certainly in favor of it, not a problem. It just seems to me that it's a little bit complicated, but I'm sure they know what they're doing if they've already agreed to.
I would think they'll go about it as carefully
Yeah.
as
Because it is
possible.
highway also, yeah, very highway. It's in the budget.
And that can be kind of a noisy corner, the one at Spartan and, by the drugstore. And I'm certainly hoping that the signal will be audible enough. And is that why?
Yeah, and I hope that they're gonna install some of the later technology that has variable volume, so that in the wee hours, the volume gets turned down, because there isn't as much ambient noise.
Right,
That blind lady where won't be out after 9 o'clock.
No, we're getting complaints in, for instance, Prince George with the noises and then going
I can see
full,
that, yeah.
full noise
Someone
at
just
2 in the
pushing and
morning.
going home, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when they turn down, because there's no background noise,
okay,
they work just as well.
Yeah, that's true.
okay, well, we will hope that, Mr. Davis is going to keep an eye on that, make sure that that it works carefully, the chirping, okay. So it's been moved and seconded that we go with option number 1. Anybody else have any other concerns? No, then we'll ask for a vote, all in favor. Thank you, that's carried. So next is the alternate approval process, boundary expansions.
Thank you.
That's you, is it, Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Okay.
Town staff have been working on the proposed boundary expansion of 8 subject properties, 5 on 87th Street and 3 properties on 45th Street since April of 2019. At the regular open meeting of April 19th, council passed the resolution below. The rationale for the proposed extension relates to the development of contiguous town boundaries and the town of Vesuvius is already providing domestic water and sewage to the properties on 87th Street. The properties also benefit from receiving the following user fee or taxable services from the town of Vesuvius: fire protection, recreation services, access to the Vesuvius sanitary landfill, and cemetery. Inclusion into the town boundaries will enable these properties to receive sewer services at a rate lower than sewer services available to properties located within the RDOS jurisdiction. The properties on 45th Street, with the exception of the property located at 5017 45th Street, would be able to access domestic water and sewer from the town at a reduced rate and receive the same user fee or taxable services as the properties on 87th. The property at 5017 45th Street is connected to both the town of Vesuvius domestic water and sanitary sewer system. Due to COVID-19, there were delays at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs that prevented the boundary expansion to move forward. Town staff have worked with the ministry to expedite the boundary expansion during the last several months. At the regular open meeting on June 22nd, council passed the resolution below. So the 2 statutory requirements for the boundary expansion were met with publications in the BC Gazette giving notice of the town's intention to hold 2 separate alternative approval processes for the properties on 45th Street and 87th Street. The town adhered to the statutory requirements by undertaking the alternative approval process for the 2 boundary expansion areas. Approval of the electors was obtained as less than 10% of electors submitted the elector response forms indicating that they were opposed to the boundary expansion request. The alternative approval process had a deadline of August 9th, 2021 at 4 p.m. for the 2 proposed boundary expansion areas. No elector response forms were received from the electors of the town of Vesuvius with respect to either boundary expansion for the properties on 87th Street and 45th Street. Council had determined the total number of electors for the town of Vesuvius for the alternative approval process was 4,313. As there was less than 10% elector response form submitted to the corporate officer by 4 p.m. on Monday, August 9th, the corporate officer has certified that elector approval has been obtained to proceed with the boundary expansion of the 5 properties on 87th Street and the 3 properties on 45th Street. Staff will forward the results of to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. The ministry will then prepare letters patent to implement the proposed boundary expansion as per Section 12 of the Local Government Act. And the Minister of Municipal Affairs will refer the boundary request to the Lieutenant Governor and Council. Final approval is done by the Executive Council, Cabinet of the Provincial Government, and if received, the ministry will notify the town, the RDOS, other ministries and agencies such as BC Assessment and Land Titles that the municipal boundary extension has been approved. So options before council are: 1, that the town of Vesuvius has obtained the approval of the electors to petition the Minister of Municipal Affairs to extend the boundaries of the town of Vesuvius as it appeared in the Gazette under the issue of June 30th, 2021, and in the local newspaper, the Times Chronicle, under issues of June 30th, 2021, and July 7th of 2021. And that all relevant legislative requirements pertaining to a municipal boundary extension in the Local Government Act and Community Charter have been completed. And that the parcels approved for inclusion within the town of Vesuvius are as follows: 5221 45th Street, 5037 45th Street, and 5017 45th Street. And for the 87th Street boundary expansion, it would be 9211 and 9209 87th Street that are one parcel. 9215 87th Street, 9223 87th Street, 9227 87th Street, and 9425 87th Street. Or option 2, that the boundary expansion be abandoned. And staff are recommending option number 1.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you didn't go through the lot, the
Thanks.
10A, et cetera. Explain each one. I think you did that the last time, and it
Yes.
took some time. Okay, so I find it quite interesting that you didn't have anybody responding, saying that they have some concerns. So I guess that's a positive thing, that things have been done the right way. So I'm sure some of the people who've been waiting for a while to have this happen will be happy. Okay, so council, what would you like to do here?
Move option 1.
All right, that's a
Let you
long
read it.
involved one. No, you don't have to read it. Thank you. Councilor Rhodes is seconding that. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much. And now I'm going to go with the building report first, Mrs. Hilson, and then, okay, and then the general net payroll. And just check and make sure that's correct. Okay. So the building report for the month of July 2021 had a total of $870,000. Some building with residential suite, some renovations, and a gazebo. And it doesn't surprise me that there wasn't more building. I think it was a bit too hot. And I'm sure that we'll probably see a little bit more when the weather is a little cooler. So it looks to me like they're on their way. I understand, Councillor Rhodes, that the West Bench Dog Park and Splash Park is having gazebos. Have you been up there? Are they, they've been built?
Not as of about 4 days ago. They weren't.
Okay, so,
At the splash park, they were taking the grass out, preparing it. The other day.
oh,
Probably doing a new concrete path.
Yeah, yeah. they were
Okay.
Take the old one. and
Yeah,
probably-
okay, okay, good. So could we have a motion, please, to receive the building report? Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett, all in favor? Thank you. And then next is the general net payroll and Sunbowl Arena financial accounts. To report on expenditures from accounts payable and payroll information for council to receive. So general cash requirements of $3,614,693.98. And I checked with Mr. Zackel about this, and this is mostly payment to other agencies. So the taxes were collected and they need to be paid to the regional district, to the hospital, to the school. So that's why it's very high at this point. Sunbowl cash requirements of $17,492.72 and net payroll accounts of $101,961.43. So the options are for council to receive these three requirements for information purposes or to request additional information. Councillor Rhodes.
Motion to receive.
Okay, option 1, seconder. Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. And next we have the committee reports, and we have the accessibility and age friendly committee from July the 8th here. And Councillor King, do you have anything you'd like to add on here that you would like to talk about?
No, hopefully everybody's had a chance to read it. The committee is very motivated and committed to this committee. Pretty well every time there's a meeting, most of the board members do go online. We are kind of hoping somewhere down the line we'll actually meet in person. But we're really doing a good job, I believe, in this town.
Good. I totally agree. I think that that other towns should likely take a page out of our book, because I think that's done very well. Anybody have any questions of Councillor King or? Okay, so could we please have a motion to accept the minutes? Councillor King, Councillor Harvey, all in favor? Thank you very much. And we will go back to the CAO report.
Yes, thank you, your worship. For myself, I don't have a whole lot. Since our last council meeting, I had a week off, so I've only been in the office for 4 days. Working since our last meeting, dealing with the usual HR personnel matters. We've been working on a draft airport development agreement with the Osoyoos Airport Development Society for them to utilize the provincial COVID economic relief initiative funds that they received for some upgrades there. It'll come to council for review presentation along with the draft budget. Shows the works that should be completed, the works that were applied for, etc. There's also a conceptual design for the ultimate look of the Osoyoos Airport that I don't know that council's ever formally endorsed, so I want council to have a look at that too. So that'll probably come in the next couple of weeks. We're about ready to send it to them and say, well, here's what we would like to ask you to agree to in order to go about undertaking these works on the town's airport, because they're the grant recipients. They need to spend the money to be accountable for them. For community services, as we noted earlier today, the mass immunization clinic at the Sonora Community Center is going to relocate to the Osoyoos Health Center, and it's on 89th Street.
Yeah.
The last clinic at the Sonora Center is scheduled to be August the 16th, but pay attention to interior health notices as well, because these things have been subject to change and it may change here again. We've been running summer camps, kids camps. They've all been fully subscribed. Been a little bit challenging with the temperatures and the air quality. But still they've been providing some enrichment and some programming for young folks in our community, which is good. The fall leisure guide is being put together. Council will recall the approval and a Fortis grant towards a real ice system for the Sun Bowl Arena, and it uses cold water instead of hot for ice resurfacing. Told that it's saving energy, and it is actually producing more than satisfactory ice quality. Curling Club is getting ready to start up and install ice on the 23rd of August. There was a hockey camp last week, and this week there's a figure skating camp at the arena, so we're getting good use there. And he says the splash park and dog park gazebos have started and will be completed within a few weeks. In the world of corporate services, Mrs. Hilson gave a quarterly report to council, but more recently, much like all of this year, done a lot of work on HR matters, on hiring and interviews and job advertisements and job agreements and orientation. She's taken over the coordination work with the town's occupational health and safety consultant as he plans around and organizes for safety training and safety procedures and guides for our organization. Then staff have been in the department working with bylaw to process the municipal tickets and deal with unsightly premises complaints. And this time of year, the majority of municipal tickets are both trailer parking or else on-street parking, not a whole lot else. Financial services, processing, and I guess requesting recovery of costs related to our incomplete wildfire response on July the 20th through that week. As council is aware, that was a big undertaking. He gave a quarterly report this morning as well and spoke about the documentation and notifications and the efforts to clean up properties that may have to go to tax sale on the last Monday in September. I was interested to note that in 20 years of working here, He's never had to have a tax sale. He's managed to clean up and work with the owners of the financial institutions to get the delinquent taxes paid. So you didn't have to go through the process. In an awful lot of places I worked, this was an annual event. And there was the same people would come and bid on these properties, because even if they were redeemed after a year, you got paid a reasonable amount of interest on your money. And it was a fairly safe place in most instances to park your money. So I think he said there's down to just 2 properties now. Because when he gave me this for this
6, I
report,
think it
okay,
was.
well, I'll just say 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Rural water accounts are due August the 16th, which is Monday coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, Monday the 16th coming up. Fire department, we know what they've been doing a fair bit of lately. Been trying to do their training as well. They got some real on the ground experience though,
Yeah.
pretty extensive. The turnout for them during those events, because I wasn't here to speak to my last report, it's just outstanding, and the community support, can't say enough for businesses and individuals in this community stepping up, wanting to help, making sure our folks were well looked after. Cases and cases of water, Gatorade, juice, and the meals that were handled, so they didn't have to worry about those things themselves. Personally, I've never witnessed anything like it. It was really neat. Ongoing discussions with the Osoyoos Indian Band regarding the wildfire response and the ways and means to provide service there. Availability of water supplies, and we did have evacuations, the campground, Spirit Ridge, the residences, so all important stuff. We're gonna meet and do an after action review, just try to solidify some of the lessons learned from our response to this thing. Planning and development, you had a presentation in regards to the complete draft of an updated OCP this morning. The intention is to bring that forward to council on August the 21st for first reading, after which there's a number of processes that have to be gone about. Council needs to consider it in conjunction with its financial plan, with the solid waste management plan, whatever that means. Referral to agencies, and then after those agency referrals to the ALC. I think Ms. McKay indicated a desire to potentially have it adopted by the end of this year, which would pave the way for a lot of the other regulatory bylaw updates that we'd like to undertake in the community, including a zoning bylaw update. They're working on preparing an RFP and may come forward with a early budget approval request for an increase to that budgeted amount. When we start to bundle all the other things that need to be a part of that update and review, such as foreshore and lake zoning and the issues around short-term vacation rentals, probably what we've allocated in the budget won't be there enough. So expect to see that probably in the future. Business license renewals, most are paid up. MTIs, as I mentioned, the boat trailer parking lot. A few unsightlies, says we're getting a lot of weeds because of the dry weather. Well, picking a lot of the stuff will stop growing soon too. We don't get some rain.
Not weeds. They grow.
They seem to have done nothing to do. So building permits, we talked earlier about building permits and the $19.1 million in value year to date. There's about another $6.5 million worth of permit applications have been submitted, and we're waiting for other. So we'll easily hit $25 million this year, which is a big year for Osoyoos. Something else there. Operational services, the power outage we had that was that associated with the wildfire? I know there was certainly a capacity constraint, and we were asked to scale back our use, but the more lengthy power outage that we had caused some issues at some of our utility infrastructure stations, and so we're working on fixing those and some of the power phases blown. To lessen load on Fortis's infrastructure, I know that Mr. Bronstein put the standby power on a number of utility infrastructure stations to work. And I think you're going to see more of that in the future, because we don't have standby power on a lot of our production water wells. And when the power goes out, we're hoping it comes back on soon, so we're probably gonna see some proposals for
Okay.
some more standby power, because it causes me no end of concern. There's a wildfire and the power's out for hours and hours. People are using water because it's hot. Not a good situation to be in. So, working on that. The Water District 9 rural twinning, Mr. Bronson report on that is about 75% complete. Taking an awful lot of time, big project. I think it had a lot of complexity and issues, including disconnection of one individual's property, which he requested. No, I still want agricultural irrigation service as well. It turns out that they have a larger residential property. And so we looked at what was done in the other districts, and if you have a larger than normal residential property, then we may allow you to have both, or if it's possible. But it needs to be known that it's not possible everywhere where they've abandoned the agricultural irrigation system. It no longer exists. And so the homeowners on residential size lots have got the domestic connection now, and that's it. Public Works lend a lot of support to the fire department, BC Wildfire Service during the wildfires. And they're doing the usual things, keeping our town tidy, sweeping streets, fertilizing watering planters, installing benches, cleaning up the beach, because the beach cleaners been out. I don't know if we get more, probably more milfoil shows up on beaches when water level is a little bit lower than normal, just because it's more exposed to wave action, getting snapped off and washed up on the shore. The lake is slightly lower than normal. Noted that the tender for the demolition of the old main wastewater pumping station on Legion Beach, we got no applications to undertake that work. So we're thinking of bundling it with some other improvements like the construction of a washroom, maybe an accessible path at Legion Beach over to the splash park. And maybe put those jobs together and attract some interest for it in that way. And that's it, Your Worship.
Oh, thank you very much. So you did, while you were on holiday, provide us with a report because Mrs. Hilson read it last, so you were.
Your Worship, I watched the meeting.
Yes, we did too. We heard your report. Just you weren't here to give it, that's all.
No, she did fine.
Well, we're glad you had some time off. So could I have a motion, please, to receive the CAO report? Councillor King, Councillor Rose, all in favor. Thank you. Now, council reports, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. I don't have anything to report this week, except that I had a good holiday in the east, away from the smoke.
Where were you?
Ontario.
Oh, Ontario, good. Well, I thought they had smoke there too, just not where you were. Okay, good. I think northwest Ontario had quite a bit of smoke, I think. Okay, Councillor Rhodes.
I'm gonna have to pass.
All righty, how about Councillor King?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't really have anything to report, but I'd really like to thank all the fire people, operations, and any other individual that helped contribute to saving our town. Thank you very much.
Second that one for sure. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of small things, desert, or the trails at the Okanagan meeting. We received $15,000 grant. And that's to work together with the Soyuz Indian Band, all over Indian Band. Or Soyuz Indian Band, particularly Indian Band, and the West Bank Indian Band. To work to figure out how we can put the trails through their land and work together with them. So we're quite happy about that. And on a sad note, I just was seeing that the Soyuz Desert Railway is shutting down the end of September, which is sad for Soyuz, because it's a great place to send your kids and be a common tourists. So good luck to the Petersons, and I think it was 18 years or a year, so it's kind of sad to hear me.
They were in another building before, like in their home, they had it. I remember taking my kindergarten class in to see it years ago.
On Walden for quite a while.
Yeah. So, is that- okay, thank you very much. So I was just going to mention when the CEO was talking about fires, that on Saturday, I was at the market and the fire truck was there, and there were about 4 or 5 of our city's fire department dressed up, always appropriately. And I said, well, it must be awfully quiet. And they said, not last night. So I guess there was a fire on the Friday night up at the viewpoint, just on the way up to the top of the hill over here. And apparently a truck that was coming from the lower mainland, Chilliwack or somewhere, Hope or something, was coming up, saw the fire, and it was a fire truck, and jumped out, got it started, and put the fire out. The Osoyoos Fire Department came up as well, and BC Wildfire. So when Deputy Chief Hillen told me about this, I had my little Miata down at the market, and I thought it needs a bit of a run up the hill. So I went up the hill just to kind of have a look. And when I got up there, the BC Wildfire truck was there. And so I chatted with them, and they said apparently 1,000 gallons in total was put on this fire the night before, and it wasn't very big. And these three jumped out of the truck, and they were just checking to make sure that that it was being mopped up. And I thought, wow, I mean, there's one of the fires that could have really exploded and added to the 260 others that we have in the province right now. And it got handled immediately. And I have a feeling that there's probably a few more fires like that have been handled locally and quickly. So they continue to do an amazing job. And, you know, I certainly appreciated seeing that firsthand. I was on a Zoom meeting with Minister Kahlon, who does Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation, and MLA Russell was on that one, and Minister Osborne. And they were getting some information from those of us on the call about how do we prepare for the next 15 years. And it's one of those things that sometimes you can be prepared and you have to shift gears. So we all had a chance to give some input on what were the important economic recovery things that happen in all of our communities. And it was an interesting, chat with everybody. However, it was good to talk to them all. So you'll see more of that type of thing. The RDOS, at the last meeting, we talked about cybersecurity issues. As you know, about a year ago, the RDOS, in the midst of the pandemic and the Christie Mountain fire, had a malware attack, and it took quite a long time to get that up and running. So they're really looking at how to cope better with cybersecurity issues and what they can do to try and, you know, help them mitigate the next time something like this happens, because it has happened very often. Certainly in the States, we've heard about it. So you want to be a little better prepared. I've also been on the EOC updates weekly, and I know that that Mr. Saunders, Matt Saunders, is on the one today, because there is one from the EOC in Penticton at 2 o'clock. So he was just going to listen in and see if there was anything more to report. And I've also been on the IH Interior Health and the mayor's updates, which are now every 2 weeks rather than every week. And in Interior Health, there's been more than 1 million doses have been given out. And this was a few days ago, so I'm sure there's been more since then. And they've also, partly because of the concerns in the central Okanagan about some high infection rates up there, they have lessened the distance between the first and second dose, and they lowered it from 49 down to 28. And I see that has happened everywhere in the province now. So that's a good thing. And I just want to say that for anybody who's interested, there is a public hearing, Regional District 1 on the Willow Beach development. It is on August the 18th at 7 p.m. at night. there is, the way I found out about it was, it's in the Suisse Times Chronicle this week. So it's an interesting topic. Yeah, there, because we're talking about water and floodplains and that type of thing, and of course, it affects the Suisse. We seem to be the recipient of everything that goes on up the valley. So if any of you are interested, please go on there and listen to see what's going on. And I think that that's all that I had for today. And I will, there's no in camera, so we just need a termination. Am I correct, Mrs. Hilson? Okay. Could I have a motion, please, to terminate this meeting? Councillor King, Councillor Bennett.